Good evening, everybody. This is the Affordable Housing Trust meeting for June 18th. Let me see here. Let me get the agenda up quickly. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor Healy's March 29th extension of the remote participation by all members in a meeting of a public body, this meeting in the Great Barrington Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and guidelines for remote participation by members of the public or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by joining via Zoom. No in-person attendance of members of the public or the committee will be present today, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings. All votes will be a roll call. The chair needs to take I'm Fred Clark, I'm the chair. We need to take a roll call of the members who are signed in electronically. So Ananda,
Here.
Bill Cook.
Here.
Joseph Method.
All right.
I got the nod.
Yeah.
And me, Fred Clark. So we have 4 members. We have a quorum tonight. Garfield is away on vacation and hopefully enjoying himself where it's cooler. And as you know, we have one opening on our board because John Katz, after many years of loyal service, decided not to continue after July 1st. So we have one opening. On the agenda tonight, the first order of business is meeting minutes. I had put the meeting minutes that we had hoped to have here, but I sent out only 2 meeting minutes. Let me see here. So I have meeting minutes for the March 12th subcommittee meeting and the June 20th regular meeting. There is an error on the June 20th meeting where the meeting minutes refer to the Windrush project that Habitat's doing in Housatonic. That is incorrect. Windrush, as some of you have pointed out, is a CDC project that had its ribbon cutting a couple of weeks ago in Great Barrington. So that will be amended.
I just wanted to let you know it appears in 2 places.
Okay, 2 places. We will amend that. So have you had a chance to review the other minutes? Can we vote on the other minutes?
Yes. I think we could vote on the June minutes with an amendment.
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah.
Do you want to take them separately or together?
Let's take them separately. I'll abstain from the June meeting that I wasn't at.
You don't have to abstain. Under the law, you don't have to. Well, you can abstain because you weren't there.
Yeah, I'm just going to choose to abstain because I wasn't there. But
Okay.
If we could vote separately.
Sure. Can I have a motion on the March subcommittee meeting minutes?
Sure, I'll move to accept the minutes as they are.
Okay. And this will be a roll call vote. We'll start with Ananda, please.
Aye.
Bill Cook, please.
Aye.
Joe Method.
Aye.
And myself, Fred Clark, aye. So accepted. Can I have a motion on the June 20th meeting minutes as modified, with the Windrush corrected or struck in every place where it occurs.
So moved.
And I will second that. So again, roll call vote. Ananda, abstain.
Abstain.
Bill Cook,
Aye.
Joseph Method,
Aye.
and Chair votes aye. Fred Clark, aye. Meeting minutes are, as modified, are accepted. On the meeting, on the agenda, we have also a note that we have one open position that became open on July 1st. Members of the public or anyone who resides in Great Barrington are welcome to apply or send a letter in or get in touch with the town manager. The town manager will be compiling a up-to-date list of all openings so that we will be listed on the website as well. So just mention that. I also wanted to update you on the 2 habitat projects, and I don't really have anything on Grove Street. I tried to get something today, but the lottery going forward as amended. At our last meeting, we amended the conditions to allow Habitat to go forward more expeditiously. So we'll let you know about Grove Street. Regarding North Plain Road, the infrastructure engineering documents are completed. They are ready for bid. They hope to go to bid in August. There are a couple of legal things that the town's working out. As you may recall, this is a state grant. We received a grant meaning the town of Great Barrington and the Affordable Housing Trust, received a grant for $3.2 million to provide or to build infrastructure. Infrastructure means all of the rough grading, grubbing trees, all of the roads, contouring, the drainage, the site drainage, the sewer, the water lines, the sidewalks, the streetlights. And if I'm missing anything, it's only because I couldn't think of it. In this case, so we will be going out to bid within the next few months when the legal stuff is worked out. Until that happens, there's not much happening. We don't have anything new from Habitat. So now I think what everybody's mostly interested in is the ADU incentive program and the report from the subcommittee. For those of you who are present, when we draft, who are attending, I just want to clear up a sort of technical point. When we draft the agenda, we try to do it a couple weeks ahead of time. We get as many ideas and things as we think are possible. Under the open meeting law, we have to add everything that we think might happen. But if it doesn't happen, we can pass over it. For instance, we didn't have the meeting minutes for April, May, or the June 15th meeting. So we had to pass over those issues. That's all by way of saying, while the ADU incentive program has a note on it that it may have a report and a vote tonight, I'm extremely doubtful that we will have a vote tonight. We didn't know that when we created the agenda. We thought there would be a vote, but I believe that there's some outstanding legal issues. Having said that, I'd like to turn it over to the ADU subcommittee to do a presentation, please.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I got fancy on y'all. I realized that it might be helpful for screen sharing purposes to have it in a slide format. So I took the document we've been working on and cut and paste into some slides. Bill and Joe, are you okay with me walking walking the whole trust through the proposal so that also people in attendance can hear. I'm going to suggest that we do clarifying questions in that process, but hold substantive discussion so we can just get through that, if that works, folks.
Sounds fine.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. If you can give me permission to do that, Fred.
I don't know how to do that, but I thought you could do that already.
You make her the host. Or no,
Ah.
make her a sub host for the.
Yeah,
Good.
that's a way to do it. Yeah.
I have just clicked make you a host.
All
Okay.
right, let's try this again. Okay. So, this is it's at this point, we're at a pretty detailed proposal. And the things that are pending will matter to some final details, but the committee is united in our recommendation that we would just adopt what town council recommends. So in that sense, like, we're really looking at the proposal as we see it. We looked at 7 areas: the purpose, applicant criteria, what the AMI requirement would be for tenants, how to structure and administer the loan itself, PR and marketing, what is the budget line we're proposing, and how applicant selection would function. There are 3 parts to the purpose, and each element of the pilot should continuously reflect those. So the first is that this pilot would add affordable ADU to the market. And just for clarification, accessory dwelling units, we now know, are a fairly broad category in Great Barrington. It encompasses everything from tiny house pads and tiny houses to separate units added, like in a garage or over a garage, for example, to an additional unit added in the body of the main house. The second purpose is to test the viability of the Affordable Housing Trust partnering with resident homeowners to increase AMI protected housing in Great Barrington. This speaks to that we have some really good models for partnering with organizations. And this is this idea we're testing. And then the third is that this would provide an opportunity for resident homeowners who may not meet 100% AMI criteria, but experience strain meeting cost of living in Great Barrington to meet those costs with additional income from an ADU. And we would do that by supporting the costs for the renovation. All right. So the applicant criteria that we're recommending, that the applicants must currently reside in Great Barrington as their primary residence, or be buying a home in Great Barrington that will serve as that residence. And that the plan would be that it would serve as that residence for the minimum of the 10 years of the restriction that we're proposing. That they will, the residency itself will be the same property that the ADU is on. And that there is project viability. So this led us to consider that some projects, it's very likely that some projects would exceed the amount funded by the Affordable Housing Trust, the cost would exceed. And that could be a viable project. There may be other sources of income or labor that would make that a viable project. And so that would be a criteria, is it viable? And then the alignment with purpose 3 in that previous section, the opportunity to provide an opportunity for homeowners to have support for the strain on cost of living. So those are the four basic criteria we're working with. We then went on to look at what the AMI restriction should be for the tenant who eventually rents the ADU. And our recommendation is that we go with the maximum restriction of 100%. This came out of our discussions and also some conversations we had with other organizations in this area, working with income eligible folks. We had robust conversation about verification and landed on that the best process will be to have the verification happen at the time of applications, as applicants come in and then somebody is selected for a lease in the ADU. That's the time income verification happens to determine eligibility or confirm eligibility. Subsequent years, as long as it is still that tenant, the verification is just verifying that the unit is still occupied by the same tenant. Should that tenant leave the unit before the 10-year, the main 10-year time frame that we're talking about, and you'll hear later that there's also an option to extend to 20 years. Then at the time of a new lease, there would be again a verification process. And then the third thing we recommend and are proposing in this area is that we subcontract verification to a community partner. I just put the 2023 area median income limits in for reference, since we're often talking about it and it's not easy to see. But you'll see that 100% gives a pretty wide range and will make the unit pretty viable for rental, but it doesn't prevent somebody from renting to somebody who's under 100% AMI. All right, the loan structure and administration. We had enough robust discussion that this is actually 2 slides. On this first slide is the core structure. So it's a no interest 10-year loan tied to a minimum of 10-year restriction to 100% AMI. So the unit has to be rented, is restricted in that way, and has to be rented for 10 years under the terms of the loan. With compliance at 10 years, 50% of the loan will be forgiven, and an option to extend that AMI restriction for another 10 years to a full 20 years would be on the table. And were the landlord to choose that, they would be eligible for full forgiveness at the end of the 20 years. Disbursement, we would disperse 50% of the loan up front at the time that the applicant is selected and the contract signed or agreement signed. And then the remaining 50% would be cost reimbursement. Repayment, there would be no repayment due for the first 10 years. At 10 years, there are 3 options for how the landlord can proceed. One, the unforgiven 50% is just due and they pay in full. 2, monthly, they can choose at that point to start making monthly payments over 10 years on the remaining 50%. And 3, they can extend an additional 10 years of using the property for AMI restricted rental, and have the remainder of the loan forgiven at the end of that 10 years. This is one of the areas where we're waiting for the input of town council. There is discussion about using a lien as a legal mechanism against the loan. Should town council recommend that over a contract, then the lien would occur at the time of the last disbursement of the loan. If town council doesn't recommend that, then we would just use a contract. Okay, then the next level of detail. What happens? So prior to construction completion, should the landlord or applicant fail to maintain their primary residency on the property after loan approval, before or during construction, funds will be withdrawn. After construction, owners who cease to reside on the property after occupation of the ADU by a qualified tenant, or fail to make the property available for rental, or who fail to rent to a qualified tenant, will not be eligible for 50% of a loan to be turned into a grant, and the loan will be due in full 12 months from the last date of or from the first date of non-compliance. So in essence, we're actually structuring here a 12-month window to correct the problem and continue with the program. In terms of time frame, we think that the time frame needs to happen on a project basis. So each time frame will be determined at the outset in collaboration with the applicant in the final stages of the application process. So as long as somebody is continuing in their projected timeline, we have nothing to worry about, and it just is what it is. We won't do anything until somebody's 6 months past their timeline. If they're 6 months over their projected timeline, that would trigger a review and a revising of the timeline and an agreement with the Affordable Housing Trust. If no agreement can be reached, then at that point, we'll cease disbursements and the town will assess legal action. Property sale. In the event that the property is sold within the 10-year, or if somebody's extended to a 20-year period, the entirety of the loan is due in full at the time of sale, and there's no grant eligibility. The new homeowner may keep the lien in place and continue the program under the same terms. And then the outstanding issue here is that Chris Rembold is getting input from the town council. It's our recommendation that we will just accept the input, and that will be integrated into the proposal. There's two areas of input. One is the area of the lien, and the second is clarifying how Mrs. Murphy's rule applies to or doesn't apply to ADUs. And then moving on to the marketing, it's our belief that the success, especially at the pilot stage, will come from the extent to which people in the community are aware of this and talking to each other and suggesting to each other that they might be eligible. So the audience are Great Barrington homeowners or soon to be Great Barrington homeowners, and then general public. So we want people who aren't homeowners or might know they're not eligible to know about this and be talking about this. We looked at multiple levels of outreach, so both community-based media and more traditional media, that there's information we'd like to see posted on our website. We'd like to see an in-person info session. We have a short list of materials we need to create, which would include a short form program description, a press release, website content, flyer, and social media materials, quote unquote, flyers. We did discuss how important it is that the language used in all of the marketing plan is really straightforward and avoids some of the language we've needed to use in the actual proposal development for technical reasons, so that we're really doing everything we can to make what we're talking about something that people can see themselves in or see their friends in. Our budget line proposal is $150,000 for the actual disbursement to applicants based on, and that selection would be based on a criteria match rather than a minimum or maximum limit on what can be funded or number of applications. And an additional $5,000 for administration that would be a flat fee to a subcontractor. At this point, we're proposing that the number of proposals funded be determined in the evaluation process and based on the strongest matches to meet the project criteria. And then last but not least, the application selection. Again, reiterating how important it is the application itself use straightforward language and also in the evaluation process. The timeline we're proposing is a 3-month window for once the design is finalized, and then selecting, and the application posted, and then selecting recipients in the following month, the fourth month. The selection criteria we'd like applications scored on are project viability, residency, living space proposed, and the alignment with purpose 3. Our backup plan is if there are no viable applications, the budget reverts back to the Affordable Housing Trust budget. We have our answer about whether or not this is a viable program at this time. There's a proposed idea here to subcontract the application process. This would protect the privacy of applicants. It would resource the administration needed for the application and selection process. And it would allow us to bring greater expertise in housing and serving communities into the application process. And that actually was a proposal that Chris Rembold put on the table. The aspect of that is pending is I'm waiting from verification from partners that is a doable thing to ask a partner to do. I'm doing that independently of what it would look like for the town to select that partner. And that's the overview. So
Okay.
I hand it back to you, Fred.
Thank you, Ananda. This is Fred Clark again, and just for administration purposes for tonight, I know there's a number of people who are interested. We're going to take comments from the members of the Affordable Housing Trust that are present tonight, if there are any. I know that the other 3 members besides myself were all part of the creation of this, so perhaps they've already had their say, but I have a couple of comments. Once that's done, we will open it up to anyone else who wants to speak. If you could raise your hand on the Zoom function, I will acknowledge you and allow you to speak, or give you permission to speak in the order that I see you. And if you could just keep it to no more than 5 minutes, we would appreciate it. And we'll try to get everybody to have comments. So first, are there any members of the Affordable Housing Trust that have comments or would like to speak about this?
I think it's a good proposal. I like the slideshow, by the way.
Joe, do you have any?
Just cut and paste.
Joe, do you have any comments?
No, good job, Ananda, presenting it. And
So I have a couple of just comments. Slide 7, where you talk about the property sale. I think that it's asking a lot to keep it in one residence ownership for 10 years or potentially 20 years for that lien. I wonder if there's some way that we couldn't I'm not clear on your language under the bullet item property sale as to whether the new owner can inherit all of the conditions, in other words, take over, transferable, in other words, to the new owner.
I think
So
that's,
it's both and, no, go ahead, Bill.
I think that is the intent, that the new
Yeah.
owner could take over.
Yeah, there's 2 options, basically. The new owner could take over, or in the process of the sale, they could include in the price of the sale, the seller could include in the price of the sale what they need to pay off the loan and then pay off the loan.
I think that's probably the best way to go, because
I mean, basically,
it potentially could be somebody could get transferred to, Oshkosh
yeah,
in 3 years and have to sell their house, no intent,
Yeah.
no bad intent, and they may have a large loan that they then need to satisfy. I also think that 20 years is going a long way. I think you could do a lot of this stuff in 10 years. and my issue is a rental unit's is gonna have wear and tear. It's gonna need to be renovated every 10 or 15 years in a major way. So somebody still is paying or has not gotten 100% forgiveness for the original creation, and they find themselves in a situation where they have to put money into renovate 15 years down the road or something. It seems almost
So I
burdensome.
think it might be helpful to think about this through the lens of what we're trying to accomplish. So this, what we're trying to accomplish is making sure that in that first 10 years, the landlord can fully realize the benefits of that additional income. Now, they could there's nothing that prevents them from starting to make payments on the portion of the loan that they are, the 50% that will definitely be a loan from day one. But we are giving them a window of time where they aren't obligated to pay. And then at 10 years, we were looking at, well, if we do that, that's a big burden at 10 years to suddenly have to be able to make payments or pay it off in full.
Right.
And so the three options doesn't force anybody into any one of them, but it really helps us realize that purpose number 3 of giving the landlord a full range of options to support their economic stability. So I would, in some ways, I feel like the 20 years, it's an incentive if somebody really wants to make that a longer term restricted space, and it might work for their financial needs. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's a preference on our part, and it's not something that I think the proposal is trying to drive people towards.
Okay, understood. What do you, I don't recall seeing a limit on the size of the loans. Are we going to just negotiate that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we expected discussion in this area. We decided to go ahead with proposing that it is a general pot and that there isn't a maximum or a minimum, but that the selection really happens through the project criteria as a vehicle. And I would suggest, if there are certain outcomes we don't know we want, if we can go back to the criteria and embed them there.
Right.
I think at least at this pilot stage, we want a lot of flexibility because we don't know that this could be useful for anybody yet. We just think it might.
I'm getting my head around it because I see that it's a different kind of thing than our down payment assistance. Our down payment assistance is a standing project that has no time limit on it. In other words, somebody could come in 1 month from now or 11 months from now, and it's still the same program.
Yeah.
And we don't know who's going to come in. But I think what you're trying to do is set a date, let's say December 1st, that we accept all applications have to be in by a certain date. And we take a look at the pool that's there and use the criteria to make our awards. Is that correct?
That's correct for this pilot phase.
Right.
Like separate from the committee, I'm just going to add this comment because I don't think we had a particular recommendation on this as a committee, but my thought is the pilot then gives us data. And based on that, we can then, the Affordable Housing Trust can then consider, do we continue this? If we continue this, would it work better as a rolling application program? What would that change about how do we do applications? Right now, personally, for the reasons we're discussing, I like the idea of an open window each year and a deadline, but I don't really think we should be trying to determine that long term anyway until we have a sense of how it works.
So I recall you guys worked on trying to get an estimate. I mean, as you mentioned in your presentation, ADUs cover a wide range of types in Great Barrington. There's a wide range of programs that could qualify under this program, from, renovating an existing space in a building to a tiny house to a place in a garage or whatnot. Is it your intention that the grants pay any particular percentage of that cost, or is there a limit based on that? I don't remember what the criteria was. In other words, say somebody's going to comes in with a budget of $75,000 or $100,000. Would we consider giving them 100% loan, or would we consider only a 50% loan?
So in the proposal as it currently is, I would look at that through the lens of purpose 3, that one of our main goals is to help secure economic stability for homeowners. So it's very possible that funding something at 100% would be the strongest match for that part of the criteria. You could have another proposal that wasn't as strong for that part of the criteria, but was really strong for project viability, really strong for residency, really strong on the proposed living space. And I would say then, if the first proposal was not as strong in those other areas, that's where you really want to see that there's a good scoring rubric. And in essence, what we're proposing is that decision on how to evaluate those two proposals against each other, beyond us setting the criteria, would then sit with the subcontractor. But it is, in my view, absolutely possible that funding something at 100% could be the strongest alignment with purpose 3, which is one of our key purposes. But
I understand.
Right? It might not be. It would really depend on the whole picture. Also, I imagine that it would be very easy to say, we'll fund this at 100% for a really low cost project, and harder to say that at a higher cost project. And I would want the subcontractor to still consider the overall impact of how the funds are distributed.
I just think we're leaving ourselves open. If we had 4 projects that come in that are all worthy, that jointly are requesting $400,000 and we only have 150, do we give 75,000 to 2 different projects and tell 2 that they didn't meet it? Or do we try to,
Well, we would not be making the decision.
And it's not in the proposal, but I would say that if they think they can do it with 50%, or in your scenario, they would get changed to 75 or something like that. They would have to come back and just do a different proposal, and then they'd have to explain why before they thought they needed 100, but now they think they can do it with 50. So so that goes into the criteria. If they want to go lower to improve their chances.
Yeah.
I think that's a little
fund
awkward.
somebody in a way that makes the project no longer viable, or that would automatically disqualify the project viability criteria. And I will say, from the grant making world, that's bad grant making.
It isn't though, I mean.
I'm telling you, it is. Like, once you approach, it's one, yes. Once you approach reducing funding in a way that the project's not viable, you're undermining what you're trying to get done. So
I'm not sure that the grant funding is the best analogy in this case, you're talking about something that is essentially an income producing product that you're creating that
It's the purpose of that income assisting somebody who is having trouble living in Great Barrington to be able to live in Great Barrington. So it's not just income generation. It's housing stabilization. That's how we need to be thinking about it. And so if somebody's project proposal does not demonstrate that the income is going to make a difference in their own stability in this housing market, then they don't get a good score there. And they are not ranked as high as other applicants.
all I'm suggesting is that someone can get a home equity loan or a second mortgage to fund a portion of it. And our portion could be the owner's piece in that.
We're trying to reach a population that is struggling and may not have the home equity for a project like this. Like, yes,
Why
some
wouldn't they have the home
have
equity
some
for this?
equity capacity.
Why wouldn't they have the home equity for this? I mean, I could see that they don't have the ability to make the home equity payment. But
Yes, right.
by definition, you're giving this to someone who owns property.
We're giving it to somebody who owns property. They may be purchasing property, but the home equity payment is right. Like we're talking about people who are, this is for people who are already struggling to make ends meet.
Okay.
So
I guess I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words.
yeah. So, I mean, I think home equity is on the table. And I think for some people might have savings, right? Like, but I also think some people might not, and we don't want to get more narrow because this is already a pretty narrow slice.
My concern is that we're going to not have a reach where we do a lot of work, provide a lot of funds, and we create one apartment.
Well, I mean, I think that is a possible outcome. I think it's an unlikely outcome. I think it's most likely in the event that there's only one applicant. And I think that again, this is a pilot. And if that were the outcome of the pilot, we may choose to not continue, or we may choose to make adjustments, but I wouldn't make adjustments on the front end that limit an already narrow applicant pool.
Well, I think that's where you and I differ. I think that I would change part of the selection criteria to, in some way, incentivize participation by the grant recipient with their own funding sources.
I guess let me say it another way. I think the market is such, and the amounts we're talking about, even if one project was funded, which again, I think is unlikely. I think the market is such that it is incentivized. Like it's not gonna be easy to put together a proposal that doesn't involve the applicant putting money on the table in some way. And or the only other way I think they're going to be able to cut costs is if there's somebody who can say, I can't put money on the table, but I can put this much labor on the table because I'm a contractor. So I don't think that we're going to get proposals that don't have a stake in it. I think I mean, Bill, you ran a lot of numbers. My impression from those numbers was there's very, very narrow path to doing this without having additional money or labor savings that you can put on the table for construction like this.
Yeah, almost impossible.
Yeah. So my thought is like, we won't, like, micromanaging and trying to figure that out, we won't gain anything. We'll just lose possible applicants. But casting the net, knowing that those are the forces, we'll get information about what works and what doesn't work.
I was not trying to micromanage it, but I was trying to massage or add to the criteria of what we're trying to accomplish as a committee.
Yeah.
And part of our charge is to leverage our monies across as much with other monies as possible.
Yeah.
We, as a group, have recognized that with the available funding, we can't do it all. And we had thought about what kind of money makes a difference. If someone is close to doing something, but needs a little leg up, a boost, that's where our funding should come. I was thinking we could embed that into the criteria.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
project viability may,
so that helps me think about your question a different way. So I agree with you that we're looking to leverage I still say, like, I think that we are going, like, there's no way to do these projects that won't involve a loan, savings, or labor being leveraged on the financial side. But the biggest way I'm really thinking about how this is leveraging funds is that we're leveraging the trust to not only add the ADU, add the unit for the income qualified tenant, but we're leveraging the trust to help secure other precariously positioned residents in Great Barrington. So
Okay.
so I agree with you. It is our role to leverage the resources we have in innovative ways. And that's one of the biggest ways I've really see this leveraging our resources in a different way.
I'm satisfied. I don't have any more questions. I'm gonna ask anyone who's on the call tonight if they would like to be recognized and if they have a comment. I saw a hand go up, but I'm not so sure. Let's see. Let me see what I'm doing here.
Sorry, I had to step away. What are we waiting for?
Citizen comment.
Amy Turnbull, I'm going to, let's see, how do I recognize you here? It should give me a chance to allow you to speak.
You may have to promote her to a panelist.
Yeah, it's not even allowing me to do that.
All right.
Because you're the host.
Okay, I can do it. Amy,
Can you recognize Amy? Thank you.
Yeah. Amy, you're good to go. Amy, are you muted?
Looks to be muted.
Still muted, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Now
Yes.
we can.
Okay, so I'd like to reintroduce myself as one of the directors with the American Tiny House Association, and let whoever may be in the audience know that I have been acting as an advisor early in the process when this program started as a movable tiny house pilot project. Somewhere along the way, it became an ADU project. And I feel that while ADU project is all-inclusive based on the bylaws, it would be a good idea to spell out in the language of the pilot program that it does indeed include movable tiny houses. So you could call them MADUs, movable ADUs, just for an FYI for people who don't often read bylaws, which are not very many people. So that's the first thing that I would say. The other thing that I know it might be late in the game, but I conferred with somebody in Portland, Oregon, who's basically the head guru of everything that's ADU, and his name is Cole Peterson. And he suggested that $20,000 is really not a lot of money. So to ask someone to pay that back in 10 years is it doesn't make financial sense. So I would suggest, since the CPA renews this money every year, that in an effort to reduce administrative costs and also to bring in more units, you consider grants, small grants of $20,000 each. That way there won't be this oversight by this second party administrative person that has to negotiate who gets the money or what percentage of the money. It's just predetermined. We'll set aside, 3 $20,000 increments for ADUs and, 2 $50,000 increments for, JDUs, which is a junior accessory dwelling unit inside of a house. And I think it would really facilitate going forward how the project works, and it would be easier for people because then it's not this mass of people applying for just I guess they're gonna say how much money they want, but then it puts such a burden on the people who are deciding that if it were structured a little differently so that it was broken up in increments, I think it might do better. I want folks to keep in mind that providing a model that creates several units over one unit will show the CPA that this is a viable program and has the potential to be refunded annually. Maybe even more money could be funded towards this unit in future years. But if this second party application judge says, okay, well, we think our most viable person is, whoever it may be, and we're going to give them the full amount. So that only creates one unit, and one homeowner is benefited and one renter is benefited. But I think it would be better to have many smaller, to create as many units as we can, basically. And that's why I'm in favor of movable tiny houses over anything else, or smaller projects, maybe JDUs. But, it's just so cost prohibitive to build an ADU that $100,000 is really not going to make much of a dent to someone, and it's going to leave out many people. So let me try to wrap up here. I had a couple of questions. Yeah, so just to reiterate, one $100,000 ADU will have less impact in providing shelter than 5 movable tiny houses or JDUs. And again, language for MADUs or junior ADUs, I feel should be included in the language of the pilot program. So my questions to end are, what is Mrs. Murphy's rule? And the $5,000 that I suppose is going to go to Construct to administer this, is that $5,000 per match? So that, like, if we made, 5 or more.
I can answer that. Since that's a clarifying question.
Okay.
In the current proposed budget, that's a flat administrative fee that would cover the verification, income eligibility verification, manage that over the period of the project, and manage the application process. There, and also for clarification, this project doesn't include any specific vendors, and that would occur through a town process. But any vendor selection.
Oh, you mean, so it's not automatically going to go to construct?
I mean, this proposal does not determine that in any extent. That would happen through the town.
So you're going to put out an RFP for that?
I believe Chris Venbolt would do a fees for service structure.
Okay, so so that is 5,000 per loan.
No. It's
For the
just
program.
5,000 for the pilot project administration for the
Ooh, that's a
specific.
lot of work for $5,000. Okay. Okay, so that wraps it up. Thank you very much for letting me give my comment tonight, and for your consideration in adding language for movable tiny houses and
Amy, can you stay on for a minute in case there's questions? Bill,
Sure.
I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, when Amanda said I ran a lot of numbers, and I did. And the tiny house on wheels aspect is probably the most likely to generate income for the homeowner, because the amount they have to borrow is significantly less. We're talking 20, maybe 30,000 max to do the project, to create a pad for a tiny house on wheels. That's the one that looked like it would generate the most income for a homeowner, from my point of view.
Amy, I have a question. You mentioned grants of $25,000. Do you think that that would be a sufficient amount to make a difference to people, to incentivize people?
yes, I do. Because many people, for many people, that's a lot of money. And like, Ananda was saying, not everybody has HELOCs available to them. There's a lot of homeowners in Great Barrington who are really strapped. So, $20,000 would be a leg up. If that is enough money is unclear to me, because that was going to be part of my research and development had the American Tiny House taken this project on. I started it and I got some numbers, and I think Bill has some numbers as well. It could be a little on the low side. It could be as much as 30,000. And we're talking, these are people who would be in town on town service. It gets a little cost prohibitive
Not
if you're on
necessarily,
septic.
right? Because there are large parts of Great Barrington that are not on town service.
Yeah, so that might be a little different. And I did go to the Board of Health and talk to them about how that would happen. And it looks pretty intense. Like you have to have like a surveyor come out, and you've got to have, additional, sorry, that's my phone in the background. You have to have additional permits, and it just gets a little nutty. So probably as part of the process, it might be that, like when you're judging who's going to be a best candidate, I think in-town houses will be the best candidates.
Thank you.
Fred, I would like to say that I don't think that outside of a tiny house scenario, 20 or 25 will do anything for anybody. Like I think that we might as well, it eliminates the utility of purpose 3 beyond somebody who's interested in a tiny house. Which is why our recommendation is not a set of limited block grants.
Okay. I think that the whole purpose of this pilot is to test the viability and the interest, and to keep it as open and unrestricted as possible is the best way to do that.
Can I just say, I guess this is kind of like wish casting, but what would be really great is if in the year when we're setting this up, that there's also movement towards reducing costs in other areas. So if there's a way that the town could start working on, it could do something where they waive fees, where they waive inspector fees or something for rents. yeah, I'm not sure where the affordable housing working group, if they have any recommendations about that, but it would be great if there are like other incentives that just like are that basically incentivize affordable rent, like it'd be nice to be worked in tandem.
Anywhere the town could help in the process of adding an AMI restricted unit would be good. I mean, I think we did talk, Bill, you had brought up again, like the real package we'd like to see would also include addressing taxes. Do you want to speak a little bit to that? Like we're like, this is going to have to be a parallel process, and an ideal endpoint. This would also be true. Do you want to speak to that, Bill?
Yeah, it's really tough constraint between keeping it affordable and still generating income for the homeowner. It's very, very hard to do that. Maybe a couple $100 a month. But if you don't have to pay taxes on that ADU for that 10-year period or 20-year period or whatever, it makes a huge difference in how much money the ADU can generate to the homeowner.
And that could even be something like tell the assessor not to increase the value, right? Like that would have the same effect.
Well, our understanding is that to do anything in that area, and I see that Lee, you're on the call as well, and so you might have information that's more specific, but my understanding from conversations with you, Bill, is that to do anything in that area is a fairly specific process that includes the state legislature. And it's possible, and there's interest in exploring it, but it wouldn't align with our pilot for sure.
No.
Fred, I will pass my comment to you.
Yeah, I raised my hand because I was interested in asking, under the scenarios that you ran of 100% AMI for an ADU, I assume it's like a 1 or 2 bedroom type unit. What would the AMI restricted rent? I mean, would you be restricting AMI rents, or would that be open?
No, the rents would have to meet 100% of AMI. Or
how does that? Where does that say that in your? I mean, what's the formula? Is it 30%, or I mean, what is it?
It's 30%. Yeah, it's 30% of your income.
Spend after tax, before tax, adjusted gross income. What do we? I think we need to spell that out if we're talking about it. If we get somebody in who meets this, and we start charging them $2,200 a month in rent.
Yeah. So
I mean, what happens there?
Right. And I also think that exists in organizations that are managing housing that has this restriction. And so I think that's let's build that in and spell it out in this. But I think we don't have to think it all through. We just need to lift it from where it exists.
We can just make it explicit. And then another thing is that it would be the AMI of each year, right? Like it changes every year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I see it as, in essence, we are complying with the restrictions that exist on the money that the Affordable Housing Trust has and on the Affordable Housing Trust itself.
I think that's an awkward and more administratively intense process than we need to get into. I mean, I agree with Amy that sometimes what we need to do is to figure out how to make it work going forward without having to come back in. I mean, it's extremely administrative overburden to kind of come in and say, okay, every year you gotta be qualified again.
No. That's not how it is. It's that at the time that the lease is signed, you go through qualification.
Yes.
And then verification in subsequent years with that tenant is just verifying that it's the same tenant. And that's, we looked at that, and that is what we have to do to comply, because you can't evict somebody because their income
Of
changed.
course. Because their
Right.
income goes up.
So the eligibility determination and verification happens at the time the rental occurs.
Agreed.
And then it doesn't happen again on that unit until there's a new renter.
But we need to somehow or other build in here that these are rents that will be in compliance with that 100% AMI.
Yes, that's correct. And I
I
think that,
Don't
Yeah.
see that right now.
yeah.
you,
I think
all you
there's-
have, but sorry, all you have to say is it has to be affordable housing under the definitions. Because affordable housing covers all, so you really don't have to say it because it's all listed out there. So, I mean,
Listed out
it's
there.
definitely, it has
by
to be,
HUD?
no, but it's listed in the bylaws, in the town bylaws that
Nine
establish.
bylaws of what affordable housing is.
Yeah, that means it's defined. So it's defined,
as-
it's defined in CPA, and then we incorporate CPA into the bylaws. So I'm in any marketing material, we can say the numbers and everything, but I'm saying in terms of like the legality of the contract or
Right.
whatever.
I mean, so I think what we're talking about are two things. One is what's the income qualification for the tenant? And two is what does that mean in relation to what rent can be set at?
I think that
And
we
so
need
I
to,
think
with
the
Joe's,
income- Yeah, and so
Correct.
the,
we need to reference where those sources are. And say,
Yeah.
you know, for instance, you can charge, I don't know, pick a number, $900 the first year or $1,200 the first year. And then it can go up according to your costs or according to
think-
standard inflation or whatever.
no, you can't change. I don't think you
Not
can.
rent
change-
control.
It is,
Yeah.
it is
kinda is.
restricted to be affordable housing.
It is affordable housing is 30% of whatever of 100% of AMI. That's affordable housing. And
Yeah.
like, that's like what it is.
But I do think Fred has a good point. Like Fred and Joe, you both have a good point. This exists. And we can just put links and Chris can tell us what we should be putting.
Yeah, I mean,
in the
I'm
link.
not saying we reinvent anything. I'm saying that we just provide links
Yeah,
to that, but we
So-
spell out what those links are.
I propose that we reach out to Chris and ask what he would like to see included and
You
then.
know, and if I were a, developer or a property owner, I would ask, okay, I can charge 30% of AMI. My tenant has a certain AMI or certain income. But does that include their sewer bill? Does that include their electric utilities? Does that include their Wi-Fi? Does it include,
Yeah,
what basically do I have to provide?
Fred, I do think that, I do think that there's an established process and it doesn't have to do with specific other bills. It will be based on tax filings and percentages.
Okay.
And that exists. And I do think you're correct. We should include information about it and where to access details. And I think Chris is the person who will tell us how to do that appropriately.
Okay,
And-
let's work on that.
Yeah.
Just to make something explicit, because that's not spelled out, but I don't think we have to spell it out, but just to make, well, we could spell it out, but something we talked about is just this scenario where somebody is in need of affordable housing, they get the affordable housing, and then they start making more money. And our thing has nothing to say about that. That's fine. That's a good outcome. So it's not like every year you're like coming back and saying like, I
Yeah.
still need affordable housing. Like you're like, it's
It doesn't limit people to a 1-year lease and then you have to reapply.
the thing
It
that
would be
that's
the
not-
only legal way to do that. Yeah. like people having housing is a good outcome. I'm glad you brought that up, Joe.
People having housing is a good idea, yes.
I
Yeah,
think Amy may have her hand up again. Fred, would you like me to recognize her for you?
Yes, please. I don't think I can do it.
well, is there anyone, just to be clear, anyone else can talk? So, or I can put up their hand as well. So this is a discussion.
Yeah, a lot of people are new to this and have trouble like talking in groups like this. I don't know why. I myself have no problem, as you know. So I just want to let you know, you guys were struggling with it, and I was like dying for you to call on me. Like I had my hand, I was trying to wave my hand because it's called the HUD 2023 fair market rent, and it's based in Pittsfield for the metropolitan area. So it's independent of AMI. It's called FMR, and it's for an efficiency in 23, it's $928 a month. And for a 1-bedroom, it's almost $1,100 a month. And for a 2-bedroom, which I don't see that happening because that's getting too big, it's almost $1,400. So, so there's money to be made. And, you know, if they go the 10 years and then, you know, they want to exercise that thing where they don't have to start making payments, then that's $1,100 in someone's pocket every month who was formerly really strapped. And that's awesome.
Well, I mean, minus overhead costs, which
Right.
may include property tax, which may include the sewer bill, may include the water bill. I don't know.
That's true. I get that because I have a duplex and I rent out a unit. But still, it's, you know, it's money that they didn't have before, and it's free money, especially if you guys decide that you want to make grants. Because as you know, I wanted to remind you that I told you this before, that when I reached out to what was the name of that housing place in Vermont, Burlington Housing Trust or something. I had a long conversation with that guy, and they basically just gave $30,000 in grants, and it was easy because there was no oversight to it. You know, really, there was no follow-up. They just, you know, gave that money, and then, you know, so the more money that goes out, the more units you can get, and then you can tell that to the CPA, and next year you maybe you get more money.
Fred, I want to let you know that Deborah Herman has raised her hand, and I have activated her.
Or acting
talking
as the host.
permission.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much.
Ms. Herman, would you like to speak?
Yes, please.
Please
You
go
know, I'm
ahead.
Okay, Deborah Herman, do you want my 373 North Plain? I'm
Thank
completely new to this and I just tuned in out of curiosity. The one thing that, well, two things that surprised me and maybe concerned me. I had expected that this program would be to encourage ADUs as, you know, just additional housing in the community, you know, perhaps affordable housing in the community. And I'm surprised that you've kind of mixed together two things. It's very ambitious, and if you can pull it off, great. But I won't be applying for this program. I'm not sure I qualify, but I've thought about putting in an ADU over my garage. And, you know, my feeling is that the cost associated with, you know, doing that in a viable way is, it would take many, many years before I could get that money back. And I'm not that young. And so that's my second comment, is that a senior citizen, even somebody who would qualify for this program, is probably going to be terrified about the 10 or 20-year time frame. We may not live that long, or we may not be healthy that long. We might have to leave our homes for health reasons. So, you know, those are my only comments. And thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, just to say, like, I think it would be great if we could collect like feedback, you know, if people want to send written feedback, that would be really great. So because we're still getting answers, and yeah, and
I have been contacted through the to people who have made a couple of comments through the chair. that they're very interested in and very encouraging of this program. I will tell you that, you know, anecdotally, there is certain interest in this program.
Yeah.
That's good to
Um,
hear.
So somebody on Facebook said that they were looking for 15,000 for an ADU. So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, that's all. So if people don't want to talk in this meeting, I think definitely send emails. And you know, and we'll incorporate, or we'll use that as information.
Okay, do we want to continue this discussion? We have an August meeting scheduled, but you know, with vacations and summer and all, I don't know whether, well, we probably should continue that because we start to get into the CPA season, as I call it, about
Yeah.
putting together a CPA, Preservation Act grant application. I've also anticipating being invited to attend a CPA meeting, likely in August, to give them an update on all of the past grants and programs that they've funded. They're very interested in hearing our outcomes. I would like at some point to sort of look in a little bit more rigorous way about our planning for and our look ahead for 12 months, particularly as it relates to our budgeting, and then incorporate into that the subsequent 12 months, which would be fiscal year 25. The relevancy to that is it has to do with our CPA application. I remind you that we received 260 or 265,000 from CPA this year, and we would likely be requesting something in the same order of magnitude. We also received $175,000 from the town from free cash, or from free cash, and we may also be getting money from the short-term rental tax, which I believe Chris has indicated would be in the neighborhood of $10,000. And if you saw the select board meeting the other night, the transfer fee that the housing subcommittee is working on would be, at least the tentative draft is to direct that money to be dispersed by the Affordable Housing Trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a sizable amount of money, but it's still in such a preliminary stage that I hesitate to put any kind of numbers to that. But the point is, we need to start looking at what we're doing and confirm what we want to do in terms of budgeting and programming, putting our efforts forward for the next 12 months and then the 12 months after that. Bill and I have, as chair and vice chair, have been invited to meet with CDC again about some smaller development projects that they're interested in. They just basically want to inform us of what we're talking about. One of which is update on a project that we had talked to them about a year ago in the Mahawi Street area, development of 4 income restricted homeowner units in that area. And we had talked to them about that. And we're gonna get an update because they've had an opportunity to look at it and look at the technical details and see where we're going with that. Ultimately, we would like to kind of come up with a plan that can be replicated, that can work on building 1 to 4 family affordable housing units that are income restricted, and we could replicate that plan from a model that we put together. So hopefully we can do that. Don't know. Ananda, I see a hand up.
Just for clarification, so we're continuing the discussion till August? I'm wondering
We're
what
not
is
in a
left to
position to
discuss.
vote, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if what we should have in August is the updates requested. So
Uh,
what I heard clearly was we wanted to add the information and links to what AMI restrictions mean clearly, especially in terms of what rent can be charged. But I'm just wondering if the August meeting, the next step is actually that we just vote.
Well, I defer to the committee for that. I think you have a better handle on what time you need, and the summer's always difficult.
Oh,
but-
yeah. Joe, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but my understanding at the last of our last subcommittee was that we think that unless the full trust gave us feedback that required additional deliberation, that the subcommittee is ready to hand this off for a vote. My feeling from what I heard tonight is that the feedback we're getting for changes are not stuff that we need to discuss. It's just something that that needs to be added. And Bill, I'm seeing your hand is up. It looks like you stopped being a panelist. I'm moving you back to a panelist.
How'd that happen?
I don't know, but there he is.
My computer bailed on me, so I had to rejoin.
Yeah, so that's what I'd propose is, and that we submit the full proposal with the requested additional information included in it.
Okay, can you get it to me in time to add it to the agenda so that
I
the
believe I
public
can.
understands the proposal in the
Yep.
terms that you were saying?
I believe I
Um,
can. And in addition, Chris Rembold clarified for when we were trying to figure this out in the subcommittee, that if you post the agenda 2 weeks in advance and we have to make an update, we can just add the updated piece. It doesn't require reposting the meeting as long as the agenda is still there.
And we need to make sure that the actual, like, the language of the proposal is in the thing.
I imagine for a vote, yes.
Just so we should make sure that happens.
Yeah.
That's fine by me. There'll still be a discussion, but I think we'll be prepared to vote on it at the end.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I wanted to thank
Does
Amy.
August work for you? I mean, vacations, all that stuff.
Yes.
Works for me.
I'll be away through the 12th, so that week that we normally meet should be fine.
Okay. The meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August 15th.
Great.
All right. On the agenda is new business. I put in budget planning and alternate programs. I've already addressed a little bit of that. I don't really want to get into that tonight because we've gone on enough. But I would like to just put a bug in your ear that we need to talk about how we can spend the money that we have. I will say this right now, just for the committee and for anyone listening. While the pilot program will be funded at 150,000, I think that the trust should reserve the right to change that amount. Maybe instead of saying we funded at 150,000, I think we should say, have language that says something like, or an appropriate amount to be decided, or subject to change, that sort of thing. I don't know. Think about it. All right, no response necessary. If anyone has any ideas of alternate programs, I am still going to try to revive our down payment assistance program as much as I can by publicizing it. And so the only thing I want to say about the AD, one more idea, is I think part of what we want to do with the pilot program is show people how it's viable. And I think there's two ways you can do that. One, you can do a case study after you're completed and say, hey, you know, Susie Jones did this. Here's the numbers in rough terms, and it works very much. I think the other way to do it is to provide some educational information, maybe in that flyer that you talk about. I know that your committee has done a lot of work, but I would suggest that maybe we start working then either in August or in a subsequent meeting on some of that promotional materials, which would include perhaps a couple of scenarios that would be viable. Ones that you've already talked about now, ones that you've already thought about. So we'll see. Okay, we have trustee speak. Does anybody have any comments about anything at all?
So,
Okay, does anyone else on the call wish to speak about anything at all? Hearing none.
No media, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, the Berkshire Edge is on the call.
No, it's
They're
it's an AI.
Yeah.
It's an AI that's it's, I mean, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's a transcript. It's making a transcript.
I understood. The next meeting is scheduled for August 15th at 6:30. It's a Tuesday night via Zoom. Without objection, this meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust is adjourned. Good night, everybody.